homeless, I guess is the way to put it. Anyone that's grown up in America can attest to how indoctrinated you are into the fact that America is the best at everything, is where everybody wants to be. We are full and free and we can do whatever we want. We have opportunity at our fingertips at every turn. When you start living in a foreign country, not only do you have to confront that reality, you're put in a unique position where sometimes you have to defend it or explain it, or I guess at the very least, deal with other people's questions about it. Being a foreigner really challenges the assumptions that you have about everything from the place that you've come from, whether it be food, whether it be politics, whether it be your social norms or your instincts. Suddenly, everything that you grew up with, everything that you thought was normal, everything that you thought was reality isn't. And you start to see your home country in a completely new perspective, sometimes feeling more critical, and at other times you're feeling kind of appreciative and nostalgic, and then sometimes you're just lost and not sure how to feel. You have to start adopting new habits and new instincts in your new home. Little things like how you greet each other in different social settings or work settings, how your time is valued, how relationships are formed. Suddenly the routine that you are used to in your home is completely different, and you have to start a brand new routine or learn a brand new routine. As you're learning and picking up these habits and trying to make them part of your everyday life, you subconsciously start to feel a little out of place because you don't know simple things like instinctively which way to look when you're crossing the street. As I've mentioned on this channel a few times, I still look both ways because I just forget as I'm crossing the street which way it's supposed to be. You just start to realize that your instincts are all wrong. It starts to creep in. If I ever return home, am I going to have the same struggles? Because my instinct is no longer my instinct. It's confused at the very least. And your practices of how to navigate everyday life don't necessarily align with your home or where you previously lived. Being an American is complex anyway, especially nowadays. And being an American living in the UK has a unique level of complexity as well. Not only does living abroad have you to confront those complexities of your nationality, but also the pitfalls that you've lived with and accepted as norms, and then you feel a little bit like you have to learn what real life is all over again, because as an American, the way we live is not real life, as I'm desperately learning. Plus, you have to deal with all the stereotypes that come along with being an American, and the assumptions that either you're really, really super rich, or you must be famous, or you must have the latest and greatest, or you must be a complete idiot. No sense of intelligence or any kind of awareness of anything outside of America, which is very normal, so I completely understand. And you have to deal with the way people perceive you and presume that you're going to be and how you're going to act or your responses. Each instance is another layer that's added to your own sense of what it means to be American, and you start to question what your realities really are. So you're in this new country, sometimes trying to figure out what's real and what's not real, and you have a bit more nuance and a bit more perspective. Hopefully, you're working on your sense of self, but it starts to feel difficult to reconcile who you were when you were living in America and what you thought being an American was supposed to be, and not really being able to identify with your old life in the same manner. You kind of find yourself torn between two worlds, and you're basically straddling the fence between your old world and your new world. You feel a deep sense of belonging to both of them, but in very, very different ways. And the concept of home actually feels less certain or grounded than ever before, even as you make your way in your new country. It's pretty confusing. Suddenly, the familiar becomes the strange, and what you thought you'd be used to starts to feel a little bit off. And not necessarily just because in an American sense. I'm sure that most people who live abroad would feel this as well, because you're just not as connected to that world anymore, right? The food tastes a little different because your taste buds have adapted. Conversations might feel a little bit disconnected, maybe even shallow at times, because you're just not in the same mindset as those people any longer. And the pace of life even just might seem jarring. And the things that you used to love about being home or love about your country might feel completely foreign to you. Also, this is something that I've been struggling with a lot, is the relationships that you do have, they don't always fit into your new life. Friends and family that you still keep in touch with, I'm sure they still care. I'm not going to ever make a presumption that they don't. But the shared experiences that you once had that formed your relationship and solidified it, they don't really align with the new person that you've become because they haven't been part of the shared experience of your new life. And it can become difficult to reconnect with them on the same level. And they see you as the same person you were when you left, even though you've had this exponential growth from living abroad. And you have to reconcile that and realize that you've changed and they've probably changed as well. And that it might be time for that relationship to dissolve and you to move on. And that also comes with that sense of loss and grief that you have to deal with on top of everything else, which is not fun. I have a newfound appreciation and respect for my partner, who, for those of you who don't know, is British and lived in America with me for almost 20 years, still going through similar things that I'm going through, because 20 years is a long time and a lot has changed. And in some ways, he is just as uncomfortable and confused as I am. And I find myself as uneasy in my own skin and on my own footing as I am here, pepping him up and trying to help him figure out what to do, what the next step is. It's a very strange dichotomy. The dynamic has shifted in so many ways, and it's very weird. As you're going through all of these changes and all these realizations, it kind of gives you a sense of restlessness. Neither place really feels like home. The truth is that after living abroad, you may never really have a true home in the same sense. The place that you left is no longer going to feel like it did. It never can again, because you're not the same person. And the new place that you have decided to start your new life in doesn't quite feel like home either, because you're still adapting, you're still learning, you're still meeting people, you're still figuring it out. It might not feel permanent. It almost feels like a very long extended vacation in a lot of ways. Feeling like you belong to multiple places, but not really feeling like you're rooted or have a foundation. And that sense of distance just changes you, and it changes the people around you and the people that were in your life. And there's just no way to really go back to what it used to be. You have to realize that moving abroad is an end of one chapter and the beginning of a new. But in doing that, you also have to be okay with saying goodbye to the old version of who you used to be. And that can be a really bittersweet process, especially if you have the opportunity to return home, which I personally haven't yet, but we've been thinking about it and talking about it. And so that's what's prompted me to really dig into these kinds of emotions, is because now I'm starting to feel like I don't even know some of the people that I used to hang out with when I was home. I don't even know if I would let them know I was in town. I don't know if I did reach out to them, if they would even want to hang out with me, because I'm not the same person that I was by a lot of aspects, by a lot of means. Are they going to expect for me to be exactly who I was when I left? Is there going to be an expectation that I'm supposed to meet? Or is there going to be a difficult conversation that needs to be had? It's kind of daunting when you think it through. All of those things run through my head as I think about what it would be like to return home. Going back really means that you have to face that end to that chapter, and that you have to reconcile that. And in a way, it can be comforting because it validates your move and all of the work that you've done in your new home, but it can also be extremely unsettling as well. And the experiences that you've had abroad will always be a part of you, even if you do return home, even if that's a permanent return. And you never can go back, right? Fully. I wonder if you can actually truly live in two separate worlds like that, comfortably. with neither one really being able to define you fully any longer. But it comes along with that realization that you'll never be the same. And they're two different things, really, when you break them down and think about it. And the comfort of familiarity is gone, and probably forever. That comfort is replaced by this tension of feeling caught between two lives, between two homes, between two countries, between two places, between two versions of yourself. And you feel homeless. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not necessarily a negative, because growth is always uncomfortable and growth is usually positive. So I'm trying to embrace it. But I'm just grappling with that sense of transformation, dealing with what I've left behind and what I might have to go back to and what the future holds for me. I don't know if any of you out there are Americans that are living here in the UK or living abroad in somewhere else. If you're going through the same thing, if you're anyone that might be living abroad or has left their home and might be having trouble with this similar concept, I'd love to hear your story and learn about your journey. If you don't mind leaving me a comment below, and reach out if there is anything I can do to help, or if you have any advice for us. My key takeaway is that I'm just going to concentrate on making wherever my partner and my child are that home. And hopefully that'll bring a sense of comfort over time. I'm just going to allow myself some space and some time to adapt, because this is a new realization and a new phase for me. And I encourage you to do the same, because no one really understands how exhausting and how much it takes out of you to deal with these types of things on a regular basis. I'm going to encourage myself and want to encourage you, if you're in this position, to please don't dwell so much on the negatives that you're discovering. Try to celebrate the future that you're creating for yourself and celebrate the person that you've become through this journey so far. And hopefully it was a positive one for you and taught you something. Hopefully I can remind myself to do the same. Thank you all so much for listening. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.